RBI, everyone, to understand what's their perspective. I won't get into that one. Mr. Mamin is there to update us that what exactly has transpired and what's their view. But what we actually are looking forward for is at the end of this meeting, there will be certain consensus amongst us because we have seen what we have done, what we have contributed, but how everything has been squashed. So, what would be our action plan? What would be our caution, point of caution? How to work with government? How to bring everyone together and really reach to the poor? So, we have to discuss on this one. And today, I'm very happy that we got a wonderful moderator and also the speaker. So we do have Suresh Krishna. Everybody knows we wrote as sector expert, but he is, really good in like he's a very known name. We do have this Mr. Deepak Verma, Chief Business Officer from Spandana Spurti. We do have Sadaf Said from Muthoot. We do have Srinivas Bonam, Head Inclusive Banking, IndusInd Bank. We do have Sridhar Tumkuri from Sasidhar from MD. He is MD Subke. We do have Mr. C.S. Reddy. So he is CEO Epimas. We do have Kishore Mangalvede. He is COO of FinCare Small Finance Bank. And we do have Mr. Kishore Puli, our old colleague. He is a chairman of Prakashna FinTech. So we do have this kind of constellation today. It would be good to hear from them. So having said so, we would like to invite Mr. Mamin, ED and CEO of Sa-Dhan, for his opening remarks and formal welcome. Thank you, everyone. Over to you, Mr.
Thank you, Dr. Saibal, and welcome. Good afternoon to all of you, and welcome for this important meeting on discussion about AP and Telangana. I think it must be after a very, very long time, we are formally joining together to discuss about microfinance sector and how it can be expanded in AP and Telangana. Once upon a time, probably the erstwhile AP, that's why we are called both the states together, because it was one state at the time, and that was a time when microfinance was in its glory, and we have seen how microfinance has grown from maybe 2000 to 2010, and also how that microfinance sector had impacted by certain decisions of the state government, and how the sector itself has become non-existent in the states of both AP and Telangana. In fact, whenever I see a map of microfinance in India, I find two states. Well, of course, it was one state only. The two states, that is AP and Telangana, remain a different color, and other states have a different color. You have the presence of the microfinance institutions. So this has been happening for such a long time, and I'm really happy that we are now here to again discuss about how microfinance can grow in these two states also, so that the picture of the country would be, the picture of the map would be uniform across the country with the same color. So that's what I'm looking forward for. And I hope that today's discussion will pave way for that. As Dr. Saibal said, after the Supreme Court order came, we thought that we should have a ground reality check. So we went in the month of April to the state of Telangana, basically Hyderabad, where most of the bigger players are there. So we met the government officials, we met the stakeholders like RBI, NABARD, we met some of the senior microfinance institutions and their leaders. And some of them are already there present in this meeting also. So what we could get a feeling is that probably the atmosphere is, the environment is now ripe for the growth of microfinance activities in this area, in these two states. But probably we need to have a lot of caution, because we all know that the sensitiveness of the sector. Even the other day we have seen Orissa, somebody has made some statement that it is causing little kind of concern. this keep happening across the country somewhere or other. Somebody makes some wrong statement and it makes our life miserable. It happened in Udaipur, and it's still something is continuing there. We have been working on that, and we were able to bring down the kind of impact to a great level. It happened in Hoshiarpur in Punjab, so it keeps happening. This is a very sensitive sector, which we all know, we have all faced and experienced, and in a very, very hard way we have experienced in Andhra Pradesh, how the sensitiveness of this sector is. So the feeling we were getting was that there is definitely a space to play, space for a microfinance institution, but not at the cost of the existing system prevailing there. There is already a SHG bank linkage program which is happening, which is going on in a very, very structured and very nice manner. And we have seen that Andhra model of SHG bank linkage has become the national model of NRLM. And now across the country, NRLM is being implemented. So NRLM is very, very much prevalent in the state of Andhra and Telangana. Even the loan availability from this SHG bank linkage system itself is also quite high as far as the microfinance is concerned, because the loan up to 20 lakh is being given up from the banks for each SHG, which works out to almost 1 to 1.5 lakh per person. So that is the reason maybe when you see some of the reports, we also that Sa-Dhan brings out the analytical report about the district with concentration. We find some of the districts of Telangana and Andhra are already there, although there is no formal microfinance activities happening there. But maybe because of this SHG bank linkage loan amount. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that there is a system already there. Without disrupting that, we need to work. I'm sure there is a lot of space for us, to work, and people need money. It's not because it's both the states, both Telangana and Andhra, both are quite matured states. Especially credit culture is high in these states. Their requirements are higher, their aspiration levels are higher. So naturally, they need more money. So how do we extend this credit to these people without causing much disruption to the existing system and helping the people to grow? So this is what probably the sense we got also, and this is what I would also like to make a mention here as an opening remark. So with this, I will not take more time because we have got an excellent panel and senior members of microfinance sector, and moderated by none other than Suresh Krishnaji. So we will have I'm sure we will have an excellent discussion on this subject. So I think I'll hand over back to Saibal. I think before we go into the panel discussion, I think one status of the microfinance in these states are being displayed.
Share it or something on this there. Is it visible to everyone?
Yeah, visible.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, very well. Yeah.
So we will take like 5 minutes to present.
You put it on the board.
This here.
Please take it. Correct.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. So we will be briefly discussing the status of. I will take a minute. I will take a while. So this is my colleague Sunny. Sunny looks after the data and analytics also in the SRO team. So Sunny, over to you. Please.
Yeah, so thank you. So we'll be discussing the status of Andhra and Telangana. So as we can see, the current portfolio of Andhra currently stands at 2,658 crores. So prior to pandemic, the number
slides also.
The PPD doesn't seem to be moving.
Is
it visible now?
Now it's
okay.
Yeah. So as I was saying, before the pandemic, the microfinance portfolio was growing above 100% at 133%, and even the number of loan accounts was registering 74% growth. But due to the pandemic, somehow it had slowed down to 20%, as you can see on March 22. However, after the pandemic got over, it has again started increasing. This growth is mainly due to the increase in banks and SFB's portfolio, which is significant in Andhra. And compared to the rest of South Indian industry, still it is over the average growth. It's registering over the average growth, as you can see from the table. Even regarding the delinquency under various buckets, it has still, compared to the industry, it's very low over the past 4 years. So at one time, the industry PAR 30 was close to 12%, but still you can see it has remained almost below 2%. Only one issue was there during March 22. There was some like delinquency high in the banks and SFB side. So that's why it was high at 6.36. Even in Telangana, also the major share of microfinance portfolio is due to SFBs and banks. So yeah, it follows the same trend here also. Like before the pandemic, it was showing huge growth of over 100%, both in loan outstanding and number of loan accounts. However, after the pandemic, it has slightly slowed down, but still compared to South India, rest of South Indian industry, still it's performing well. Here also the delinquency levels under various buckets has performed well compared to the industry average and rest of South India.
Done.
SSG.
Huh?
SSG.
Where is this SHG?
Yeah.
It's not there.
Some-
So you tell. So there is this also we have collected the data of SAGs to give us a kind of understanding that what is there. What Mr. Momin was telling about the existing system, we are seeing that there is 63,000 crore in Andhra Pradesh. And its a year-on-year growth is 28%, which is very good. And also like in Telangana, we are seeing 22,000 crore, and it is also more than 20% growth. So, so we have to be careful that what we do. So this is what we wanted to show you, that we do have microfinance, which is also growing, and we do have substantial SHG movement over there. The portfolio is also very good. So like so on, it is to set up the context. Now, Sunny, if you can come back to this. Your stop sharing, stop sharing. This is stop sharing. Just no. Just bottom of that. There's this red one. Stop. Stop sharing. Okay. So this is to set the context that where are we standing, and the growth of the sector in both of the states. Now it is the time to discuss on it on the parameters. So over to you, Suresh.
Great, thank you, Zaibil. Thanks, Gigi. And good afternoon, everybody. It's so nice to see that all of my many peers are here who had been in the thick of the AP crisis in 2010. I think it's nice to see many of you here, but I think I should, at this point, I should also say that we all are sorry that there are many people who are not there, who got really impacted very negatively of this microfinance crisis. Many did recover from the situation, but many could not. I think that's the story. I'm sure everybody knows about it. I just want to highlight a few points, and then probably I think I have a fabulous panel here. I think I'll ask them to each one of them to talk. I do recognize that I think Reddy Garu needs to leave early, so when he will be speaking and sharing his thoughts first. Just before that, I just want to bring everybody's attention. Way back in 2010, why did this 2010 AP crisis happen? Of course, there was a lot of issues. We're not getting into detail about that. But some of the criticisms which we were actually criticized for as MFI sector was the following. I'm sure you all remember. So one request before I continue is, can everybody keep their mics on mute so that everybody can hear clearly? And any questions or anything, if you want to put it, I think I would suggest to put it in the chat group, and Saibal, if you can actually collate it and send it to me, I think we can go through that when everybody talks about it. Okay. So the criticisms of MFIs were as follows. I think if you all remember, I'm just stating it because so that we recollect the scenario in which we were actually, where this situation happened. One is we were criticized that we were profiteering by the poor, right? We were charging high rates of interest rates, and the MFIs were profiteering too much from the lending to the poor. We were doing multiple lending, and we were increasing over indebtedness among the women and most particularly the poor. We were lending without any assessments. That was one of the criticism. Without assessing any repayment capacity, that's what I meant. Our recovery practices were bad, and we were using strong arm tactics and then snatching away their assets and then pushing them into, sell their jewels or even vessels in their houses, or somebody was going into prostitution, somebody was committing suicide because of our bad recovery practices. And overall, we were not transparent. That is what were the criticisms, what we were all criticized for during that period. I'm not saying that all institutions had this, but unfortunately, I think in some places, some of these were true, because some practices of recovery were not so good, which was leading into, some suicides, was to prostitution and selling the assets. Those did happen, because there was a study, I think, which was done by, I think, Sa-Dhan and Microfinance. I think all of us together had done it at that time. That did reveal there was some fire during that. That was the background in which this act actually came in. If you look at the act, they never said we should not do microfinance in both the states, but they only made it so difficult that we will never be able to operate that. Some of the things where we had to register in every single district for us to operate, and we were asked to, we were asked to take prior permission from the government or the authority before we can lend to anybody in the state. And we were also asked to collect repayments only in presence of the government official, and interest rates cannot be more than principal. These were some of the things what happened. So it's so nice to see that at least finally, I think the High Court and Supreme Court has held that, we are MFIs, at least the NBFC MFIs regulated by Reserve Bank, do not come under the jurisdiction. But during 2010, there were a lot of NGO MFIs. Not everybody had actually moved into the NBFC categories that time. But now I think most of the MFIs have been, or NBFCs, unregulated by Reserve Bank. So key questions which come to my mind now, if we are going to restart, I think it's been so many years that microfinance activities came to a standstill in AP, and of course in AP and Telangana. I think Reddy Garu might be able to give you the current status and the thinking and what should be the precautions one needs to take. But the key questions comes to my mind at this point of time is, if we are going to restart, what is the message we are going to be sending out into the public there? That's the primary question which comes to my mind. This is probably, I think each of our panelists can think about answering that. What is that? Because we were lending money, banks and financial institutions were lending money, and now all of a sudden government came and said, don't repay, and nobody repaid. So that means the message was people did not repay all the MFIs and the financial institutions. That is the message which went. Now, what is that? How are we going to correct that situation? What is that? What is the message you're going to go and talk to them about? If you're going to lend to them again, are you going to say it's okay? What has happened has happened. Now we will all start fresh. Or what is the message you're going to think? Will people repeat this again? Because we were all thinking at the time, clients would be very supportive of MFI operations because we were the first people to actually go and then provide them financial services. But clients did not really bother about it. So that's the point which comes in. And also the local political leaders and the local leaders who have taken this advantage. How do we deal with them? What is the messaging? How do we convince them that this is the new law and what the Supreme Court and High Court has said? So this is a primary focus if we are going to restart in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. So maybe we should answer these questions so that if you're going to do that and how we are going to be solving this particular message. Rest of the things, I'm sure you all know how to actually set the operations and things like that. But the crux is the people at large now have been used to certain things. Now, that is the change what you need to bring in the mindsets of so many people. So this is what my view is. This is my questions in my mind. So we'll start with Reddy Garu. If you can probably in your sharing your views and opinion, if you can also include what is Srinidhi doing today in AP and Telangana, and what are the status of SHGs and how they are doing. I know Sa-Dhan presented it, but I think it'll be good to hear from you because you are the key veteran. Over to you, Reddy Garu.
Thank you. Thank you for this little background, Suresh. Thanks to Sa-Dhan for organizing this, and good afternoon to everyone. This is kind of, it almost looks like a full house. We have 131 people in the meeting. So that's good news that there is interest and enthusiasm about Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. And I also, by the way, deliberately requested and invited both Srinidhi of Andhra Pradesh and Srinidhi of Telangana to join this meeting. So we have, I think I just saw Mr. GVS Reddy, the MD. He is the founder, CEO or MD of Srinidhi. I think, there are maybe a few points that I want to make without taking too much time. Suresh, what, 5 minutes?
Yes, Reddy Garu, 5 minutes to everybody, and then we can open it up.
Yeah. I will kind of have to slip out. So that's one of the reasons why I'll be just, but I'll try to be very brief. I think, we should not look at the past too much, but if we look at the past, I would request everyone in this virtual meet to look at the past for learning and not fault finding. I think the past has taught us a lot of lessons that help the microfinance sector to become maybe more vibrant in the country, build resilience. Resilience is the word today that we talk about. But just to throw a few numbers at it, today the women of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana are approximately dealing with around 1,50,000 crores. Their savings, I kind of did a back the envelope calculation, 50,000 crores of their own savings. The bank loan outstanding is over 70,000 crores. Srinidhi outstanding is almost 9,000 crores. Everything put together. And today SHGs are able to get 10-member group is able to get 20 lakhs. Srinidhi, a member can get up to 3 lakh rupees. Maximum under different products and services that Srinidhi offers. Of course, the interest rates among all these is low. Srinidhi, I think, would offer at around 12% or so. So today, in terms of the funds, I would say like Andhra Pradesh, Telangana being the states with high CD ratios, even in the so-called microfinance, we have quite a bit of outstanding. Another pointer I want to mention for the people in the meeting is the urban SHGs in Andhra and Telangana are also very strong. I think we have around 3.5 lakh self-help groups in the urban areas. In fact, today, Telangana is more urban than before, part of the bifurcation of the state into Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. And I think if you combine the SHG bank linkage of urban SHGs in the whole country, you have that much loan outstanding for SHGs in urban SHGs in Andhra and Telangana. So I would say, like Gigi mentioned, we need to have caution. Not only do we need to have caution, we also need to have a much deeper understanding, and maybe the kind of approach that you have elsewhere may not be appropriate here. So you need to deepen your own understanding, about what's happening. I guess one of the issues Suresh mentioned was this, the collection practices and things like that. But the debt trap was one of the real issues that was considered. And for all of you, Andhra and Telangana, also the loans for under SHG bank linkage are interest-free. While Srinidhi, they collect the loan interest, and if the government decides to release it to the groups later on, that happens sometimes. But SHG bank linkage and finance for agriculture is 0 interest rate, both in Andhra and Telangana. So that's just the context. So I think for any organization, you need to maybe rethink your model, rethink your engagement, and And I think, as Gigi mentioned, not to destabilize whatever the work that has been done. In fact, one of the reasons why Srinidhi has been promoted as a community-owned financial institution owned by the Mandal Samakhyas was to fill that void created by the microfinance institutions leaving the states of Andhra and Telangana. So I would say that you need to really look at what is happening. Is there already too much of money in circulation among the members, among the women in the state of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana? Are we talking about enterprise finance? Are we talking about MSME? Are we talking about getting into sectors like food processing? Also the methodology itself, are we looking at more the individual lending rather than group-based methodologies? So if the microfinance institutions have to do something which is useful for the women of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, not for the profit of the microfinance institutions, but as a service for the financially not so included, then I think there is a need for product innovation, process innovation, and look at maybe more effective use of technology. By the way, almost all SHG members in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana now have individual bank accounts. So I think, so when the MFIs left in 2010, 15th October, or a little after that, in these 13 years, a lot has changed. So I would say, you need to really deepen your own understanding, and you can't just bring what you're doing in Madhya Pradesh or Maharashtra or Bihar to Andhra Pradesh and Telangana and then think that it will be successful. When I travel to other states, I do keep hearing about some of the microfinance institutions' practices there, including some of the small finance banks, or including those that have become banks more recently. So, and we are now in the year of elections, both state elections, and both Andhra and Telangana go to elections. Government of India, we have the general elections. So I would say take a year of deepening your understanding. Also, till now, the government has not come back and made an appeal about the order, the court order. So maybe there hasn't been much of a thought given by the state governments. So I would say, take a call based on your understanding of what's happening in the country and what's happening in the two states. And definitely whatever you do must strengthen the self-help groups, the self-help group federations, the village organizations, the Mandal Samakhyas, the slum level federations, the cluster, the town level federations, and more in the area of enterprise finance and more innovative, futuristic kind of initiatives. So that's where I would say, and I'm sure Srinidhi will be happy to, share their own experience. Maybe there can be, Sa-Dhan can organize a virtual meeting where Srinidhi can make a presentation of their work, and what they think about, what can be done by microfinance institutions. I would say, I will never say that there is no space for microfinance institutions, but I'm only pointing out that the space is there for financial institutions, maybe not microfinance institutions, as they're conventionally known as. So maybe I'll stop there, Suresh, and then you can move on. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gigi, for inviting me to share a few thoughts here.
Thank you, Ricardo. It's nice if you can stay back and stay on for some more time, but given the time on hand, what we have, I'll move on to other people. Maybe we can start with the bank. Bonam, I think, Srinivas Bonam, I think you can start with the bank perspective, and then we will talk to others. You have 5 minutes now.
Thanks. Thanks to Sa-Dhan and thanks, Suresh, for the opportunity. A difficult topic to talk on, But happy that at least the opportunity is there now to start something which we've all sort of moved away from in 2010. The area which used to be the mecca of microfinance at one point in time. The opportunity is there, and like what CS was just mentioning, the opportunity is huge. I think AP and Telangana do of it's a very vibrant credit market out here, and will continue to offer opportunities for players who do it responsibly. Just to give the size of the market, the overall credit. See, one of the things that you touched upon, what is the message we want to send when we restart? The key aspect from a bank, and talking from a bank's perspective, if one has to enter, we will see whether the credit culture is intact. So we did evaluate on the credit culture through some of the data available from RBI, and largely it appears that AP and Telangana continue to have a very good credit culture demonstrated both in terms of the growth in credit vis-a-vis the other states. It continued to maintain its share. The overall market in a banking system wise, if we look at both AP and Telangana, will be about 12.1 lakh crore, which is about 10% of the overall banking system in India. A reasonably good share of market. And if we extend this to the small borrower segment, which is the point which CS has also touched upon, that may not be pure microfinance, but we may be seeing some graduation into the larger ticket loans. So if we look at a small borrower segment, so less than 2 lakh loan, the size is about 1.31 lakh crore. This is between AP and Telangana out of the overall all India banking system reach of about 10 lakh crore. So that's about 13%. So largely what I'm trying to say is that the credit culture is intact. And if we look at specifically the performance of the portfolio, that's also seemingly better than the all India average. And so no major concerns per se. Having said that, if we were to look at the topic that we have, what are the challenges for somebody to get back into this market? I think I would broadly put it under two buckets. One is a perception battle, which is a big battle to be fought by the entities. Keeping the stakeholder, if we were to look at the stakeholder as the political, the government bodies, and the bodies like the state level banker committee and all that. Perception towards microfinance is still not changed, despite a lapse of 13 years from the time this act got into place. Despite the fact that so much good has happened across the country, and is one of the, at least the finance minister, the RBI governor do make it as part of a reference for all financial inclusion initiatives. A lot of good work has happened, but perception is still not very good towards the sector. If we talk to some of these sections on a one-to-one basis, that's one battle which has to be fought. The second is, and this is a bigger challenge. I'm sure you have witnessed it all. The memories tend to be short, and we should not forget what has happened in the past. So that's something which we all need to keep in mind. Otherwise, it's going to hurt us very badly, and may not. While the resilience is something which we are known for, I don't think we will have an appetite to take one more hit. So I think from a strategy, I'm going by the seminar title. In terms of, I think, how do we overcome these challenges? So one, I think we have to very closely work with the government bodies. There are a lot of schemes which they're coming up with, and they're looking at support from market players, and that's something which the entities which are getting into this space in a big way should start working with the government. Is one of the ways in which we can give them the comfort and help clear the perception, is my view. There's a lot of work which is happening, which is trying to sort of formalize the informal economy where there is a role which can be played. The entity, the microfinance is already doing its bit in trying to move towards this for some of the players through participation in some of the schemes. So maybe we can try and do that more. We've seen a significant change in the way the accounts are getting opened, the accounts are getting operated through credit flowing into it, collections perhaps starting to happen. So we'll see more digital and how we can help in the digitization of the economy, which is high on the agenda of the government and the regulator and all that. So that is something which can help perhaps address some of the perception battles. But I would like to end by making this remark again that memory is short and we should not forget. And in our exuberance to do something, because the market is huge, if we try and do something very fast, we might hurt is something which we should. So we all should be responsible, and I think it's a huge opportunity that we can tap. So I would like to end here, but happy to take any questions later.
Thanks, Bonham. It was nice to hear that, you're saying things are good in Andhra Pradesh, at least the credit culture, both Andhra and Telangana. So maybe I think we'll move to the next speaker because we do have another half an hour time. I don't know how we'll manage everybody. So I request other speakers to be a little bit more sharper. I'm sorry that we have to cut down a little time of yours. We'll start with Kishore Kohli because he was the one who did take a maximum damage.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Suresh, and thanks, Sa-Dhan. It's so attracting, comments by CS and Bonham. The credit culture is good, the potential is good. So people are looking at these two states after, this pronouncement of judgment. Everybody is rushing towards Andhra Pradesh and Telangana because they know that at one point of time it is Makkah of microfinance, and we altogether we lost 7,200 crores when the ticket size was just 8,500 average ticket size. And but see, the ticket size increased to 80,000, 1 lakh in other states. If everybody wants to come in, operate Telangana and AP, they should be conscious of the fact that these borrowers, either they have taken loan from Srinidhis and SHG groups, which is not reflecting in credit bureau systems. Member-wise data is not available in credit bureau system. So if you just look at a microfinance credit bureau, your rejection rate will not be more than 10 to 15%, unlike many other states. So we should be a little careful, and we should also ensure, and I'm sure RBI has passed some circular to get this member level data into credit bureau, but it's yet to be operationalized. Once it is in place, everybody should look at how much the borrowing is there against each and every member, including SHG portfolio and Srinidhi portfolio, and then decide how much can be given. And we cannot start a loan with 80,000 ticket size, like in any other states, which is a common practice now by microfinance institutions, and we should be very careful. And I just want to touch upon one point, Suresh, on the negative side. In fact, you mentioned so many reasons for that crisis. I may or may not agree for all those reasons, but one reason is perfect transparency we were missing at that point of time. And we should be, henceforth, we should be transparent enough, and we should coordinate with government, and we should work with each other to understand the sector and for the benefit of each and every member of the society. That is where I just want to conclude. And for any questions or in case if you want to share any experience of mine during that crisis, I would be more than happy to do that.
I'm sure. I think we would like to learn about it. Maybe I would ask Sa-Dhan to probably organize another event so that we can all share our experiences, actually the nuances of what happened during that time. But sure, thanks. So let's move to, I think, another big entity which did take a big hit and then recovered itself back into a fabulous growing entity now. I think Deepak, I think you're from Spandana. Your time starts now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I would request you if you can keep it for 3 minutes, if you don't mind.
Sure. Considering the amount of experience which is already available, I will try to curtail it here. As already mentioned by multiple speakers, The credit quality of APTS in any of the product lines in rural market has always been kind of prime. While we have been present in certain geographies doing individual loans as Pandana, but one of the biggest challenges, the difference now is the customer itself has quite changed from what it was in 2010 to now what it is. The banking knowledge, the perception of having their own records being damaged, all that is already quite prevalent in the geographies. Having said that, considering the size of the market and the quantum of business growth possibility there, the normal reaction generally is going to be everybody rushing in and opening branches across the geography. But that's something which, like some of the lending which is already present in the market and is not available to us to verify, is one of the biggest challenges and problems that's going to arise. Because as already mentioned, even in 2010, as the clients start getting over leveraged, that's when the whole problem arises of wrong practices of collections or anything else which follows. So as mentioned, some of the messages I was reading that we should not be entering, we should be waiting for the elections to get over, is again a call every organization will take. But I guess there is enough possibility there. The only thing to be taken care is we do look at the client and as the primary objective, that we do not overburden the way we were doing earlier. And I think, as Srinivas said, the memories are short. We do forget some of the mistakes we made earlier. So it would be probably a good practice to actually study the market, know the geographies, know exactly what kind of leverage is already present with our clients, and then pursue the expansion plans, which I'm sure a lot of organizations are already in place. So that's it. I hope it's within 3 months, 3 minutes.
So super good. I think we all know that, and all these, Spandana particularly also went through a lot during that time. I think, yeah, so everybody recognizes that, but thanks, I think, for that positive outlook, what you all have. So maybe I'll move to the next person. I think Kishore from FinCare, he was also part of the, during that time, his organization also was the one, if I remember right, was the one first to actually go through that corporate credit restructuring, and then the rest of the people followed later. Maybe he can talk about his views now.
Thank you, Rashita, and thanks to Sa-Dhan for having organized this, one of the need of the hour, and of course, a very important topic because the challenges. As all the fellow panelists mentioned, there's of course a good opportunity, but there has been certain, I would put it as, ups and downs which have been happening. And in the way the judgment has given, has made all of us to come together and start looking at it at a big market. And many of the reports have been talking about this as one of the biggest markets because of its traditional, the birthplace of microfinance kind of thing which happened. Coming to Future Finance, which was the original FinCare bank along with Disha, which got merged and we started, we were the first to come out of the CDR also. We were in CDR and with almost 200 crore plus in this and 275 overall crores in that. And then we managed to come across. We also started some of the business in AP Telangana, more in terms of the overall product portfolio which we give as a bank. One of the first small finance bank to enter into AP and Telangana. But then the challenges which are here is very simple. I think all of us have been talking, everybody has mentioned that. Without the government's, I would say, hand-holding kind of thing, with either way, it can be just that we inform them and go about, or at least we go in line with them to see that, ultimately the beneficiaries are the poorer section of the society or the financially excluded. So they are also doing something and we also are doing something. Ultimately, the end product of the customer is going to be the same. So you try to build up some kind of a coalition with them in such a way that, we can do our businesses without any hindrance. And they also feel that we are part of the system and not anti. In fact, the earlier issue was that they felt we who have been doing the business at that time were anti-SHG movement kind of thing and only profiteering. That is not the case. And I think this is something to be shown to or told to these people who are wanting to know. And probably the other states have given us a lot of opportunity to showcase this. Once we do this, I'm sure that will be an opportunity for us as well as the government to think that, this is something which is a good thing to go about. And as of today also, I think there is no interference anywhere. We have been doing, Sa-Dhan has been doing, a few more banks have been doing, but it's only that, some pockets, some interested or maybe typical people, politically they take something and try to make it as an issue. So a collective mechanism, and maybe with Sa-Dhan coordinating a little bit for all such things, will always go a long way in making microfinance industry to flourish back in AP and Telangana together. Any questions? I can take it up later. Thank you.
Thanks, Kishore. So Sadaf and Shashi, I think I took the liberty of putting you guys in the last because you're two close friends to me. So maybe Sadaf can come in now, and then Shashi, your comments as a final speaker in the next after Sadaf. Sadaf.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks. Pleasure to see you, Suresh, after a long time, and a lot of the colleagues, Kishore, and definitely both the Kishores. Good to see you. Brings back a lot of memories. Definitely, we are talking about a subject which is close to our heart and our territory. But apart from all the gloom and doom and everything that we have talked about in the past, I just wanted to kind of paint a picture in a sense that what has happened in the past and where are we today. I think we need to learn from what has happened in the past, but at the same time, we need to also appreciate what has happened over the period of last 13 years. So one of the things which is very, very important is the credit bureau system. I think when the AP crisis happened, of course, it was because of over exuberant lending, but now we have a very strong credit bureau system in place. We have very, very robust SRO system is in place. There are two very active SROs which are playing a responsible role. They are managing all the members and all the regulations and everything. So, that is in place. We have a regulator which really recognizes the contribution of the sector, and as an industry we have grown quite a lot. If I remember correctly, when all of this happened, the industry size itself was around 20,000 crores in terms of MFI sector, and maybe SHG put together another 10 or 15,000 crore. But today we are talking about a microfinance industry between NBFC, MFI, SFBs and banks of 3 lakh crore. And if we take SHGs, maybe 5 lakh crore. So that's a significant number. We have almost around 6.5 crore borrowers, and SHG put together even more. So I think a lot of water has flown under the bridge. I think AP Telangana was a mecca for microfinance and also turned out to be almost a deathbed of microfinance industry. But I would say that we have come a long way. There is a lot of changes which have happened. There is a lot of digital penetration that has happened. There are much more better way to underwrite loans. I think essentially, if we look at the problem arises from over exuberance lending and over lending and over leveraging of the customer. So if all of us play a responsible role and we ensure that we do responsible lending, we follow the FOIR norm that has been laid down by the RBI, I think we can definitely make good penetration into the market and serve the clients. Ultimately, I think definitely there is a credit need, and microfinance is a vehicle which can serve the credit need at the bottom of the pyramid, which has been proven across the country. And I think AP and Telangana is no different. Definitely, what we need to follow is by principle, not only by speaking responsible lending, we should ensure that we demonstrate that we have learned from the past and we lend with responsibility and ensure we follow the FIR norms in toto, definitely we can serve the clients with whatever we have. A lot of new categories of MFIs have come in. There are SFBs, banks, so we can serve their needs better. So I think in summary, I would like to say the opportunity is there for everyone to take. But a word of caution that we need to be more responsible. We have to be more cautious and use all our diligence to underwrite customer in a more sophisticated manner so that we don't over leverage the customer. As long as we follow these principles, I think we will do good amount of business in this area. So that's all that I would like to say.
Thanks, Siddharth. Shashi.
Thank you, Suresh. Thanks, Sa-Dhan, for this opportunity. And speaking last is, I have an advantage of not speaking much because a lot of things that I wanted to mention are already mentioned. But I would resonate a lot with what CS started with, wherein I think the note was a bit of caution in the sense that what we do in many other states or all other states probably need to be relooked at. The business model and the process innovation is very critical for us because this is an opportunity. I would rather take this as an opportunity to enter a state which is very mature in social lending space, because SHG lending numbers, if I see, even the Andhra Pradesh SHG lending penetration is much higher than the highest of microfinance lending in any state in India, which means that the government machinery is working very, very effectively and has actually grown to meet majority of the credit needs in the bottom of the pyramid, apparently. It looks like. It's not that the opportunity is not there, but opportunity is not as big as it is in other states, is what I understand from the micro lending perspective. Hence, it is an opportunity for us to innovate and perhaps complement to what is being done, the great work done by the government machinery, Srinidhi and others in the state. For the lack of having microfinance institutions, they did fill quite a bit of a market space out there. So I think we as MFIs should perhaps look at Andhra and Telangana as a graduation market, not as a replication market. And hence come in with new ideas, new processes, co-create products with the existing machinery, existing programs, and perhaps help these SHG members, which eventually would become JLG members in some sense or the other. But instead of creating new groupings, if we can help these members access capital of a different scale and size and complement to what the current programs are supporting them, I think will be a much more welcome note for the current administrations as well in these states. So I would take that message very strongly, that perhaps this is a very good ground for innovation and, of course, digitization, given the states in the south are much more digitally savvy, and AP and Telangana are no different, although internet penetration in AP Telangana are relatively lower than other southern states, but perhaps that's more because of the urbanization in these states. The rural areas are not that much connected, but nevertheless, there is a lot of scope for innovation in my point. I would also say, there's nothing wrong in waiting and watching to an extent. I don't think there's much of an early mover advantage or early mover advantage in these two states, because there's a lot of history. Not much is forgotten by various stakeholders. So I think it's great that we have more than 100 participants here, but it's also a bit nervous because all of us are excited to come back. But I think we all should make sure that we come back with the right time, in the right way. So elections are around the corner. Perhaps post-elections is the right time to re-engage in this market and not so aggressively before that. That's one point that I would like to bring out. Of course, it's individual decisions, but from my perspective, it's important to keep that in mind. The last point I would make is, the fact that the current market is very, very used to zero and low interest pricing. I think it's very important for us to think about that aspect as well, and how we can be a second lender in the market, first lender being the SHG bank linkage or Srinidhi, how do we fill in the gap with the pricing that is continuing to be the same as it was when we exited this market, more or less. So I think justifying that as an industry is very critical because that was one of the big contentious points when we exited. So I would just want to leave those thoughts for all the peers to think about and calibrate the move in the market and not necessarily be too excited about it. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Shashi. So before I think we can let other people participate, ask their questions. So maybe I would request everybody, if you have any questions or if you have any comments, please do put it on the chat box there so that we can collate it. I think Saibul is collating it so that we can pick it up afterwards.
Some echo coming. Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Suresh, can I have some couple of comments? Can I add from this is Thiru from MCRIL.
Thiru,
I belong to Andhra Pradesh and I'm staying in Hyderabad and
yes.
I know this sector since last 25 years. Can I have some comments, Suresh?
Just
a couple of minutes.
Thiru, just hold for a minute. Let's complete this first panel because we do have another more than half an hour for all of you to come in. So just bear with us for a couple of minutes, please.
Sure.
So before we do that, what I had one question to all the panel. See, if you remember, or if you all, I think most of you also mentioned, one of the major concerns for most stakeholders is over-indebtedness and lack of transparency. When coming to over-indebtedness, if you look at the Andhra ordinance, or even the Malagam committee, or even the RBI's regulation, came out with this thing that one person cannot be member of more than one SHG, or they cannot borrow from more than 2 MFIs. Of course, that was modified later. This came in from the point that people were seizing the opportunity and borrowing money from multiple places, whether they can have the ability to repay or not, but they were getting into indebtedness. So this problem per se, not exactly in the same form, but in any other form, will always exist. I don't think so. People have learned lessons. I mean, like Bonham started saying that, memories are short and we keep repeating the same mistakes. I mean, we have seen that in the financial industry that repeatedly people fall for the same thing. So, I mean, if you all, each one of you can take a minute or two and respond to this thing that what is that as MFIs or financial institution or the new evolved institutions now from what we were in 2010, what are those things which we need to take precautions so that this issue of over-indebtedness will not arise once again? So we can start from Deepak.
Sure, thanks, Suresh. See, the first, what I can kind of think of is the first step which companies take when they enter a new market, and especially for a market like AP&TS where virtually every organization is going to be planning to be entering most of the geographies. It's about, going first is looking at the data, whichever is available right now, because while some of these government schemes are not there on the system to be checked out, but at least be aware of the indebtedness. And secondly, whatever RBI, there are certain norms now set which were not there in 2010 when this whole industry was running in APTS. There are certain norms specifically mentioned on FOIR, a number of, so the household income. So there are certain general directives given. It would be a good idea not to have separate organizational level risk patterns to be taken up in the beginning, at least. Initially, it would probably help if every organization, whichever is entering, and when we are approaching the clients and the groups, to adhere to the specified norms. As the industry progresses and as we have more data onto the system, like we said, the state run schemes which are currently not available to us to actually judge. Once we have those in the platform, then obviously every organization can have its own risk appetite on which way they want to go. But the first would be, more calibrated growth into the geographies, not just run amok with the probably with a set target of number of branches to be opened in the next 1 year. Second would be, yes, do try to adhere to whatever are the norms being mentioned as of now, and go by the data, whatever is available on each client. Thank you.
Siddharth?
Yeah, sure. Suresh, as I said during my time, I think responsible lending is the key. And earlier, we were though an industry, but we were operating in silos. Now we have a more cohesive approach. So there are code of conducts which have been prescribed by SROs. All of us need to ethically follow them and ensure that we don't, in our over exuberance, go out and breach those codes. A lot has changed. The lending rates and everything are now pretty transparent, and the mechanism that RBI has put in is pretty robust. I think all that we need to do is to follow those rules in toto, in letter and spirit. As long as we do that, we should be good. And I agree with Deepak. Now a lot of data is available. We need to study that data, do the data science, and understand that which are the borrowers which are more likely to default or get overburdened. So avoid those borrowers. It's good for us, good for the borrower, and for the industry. So I think it starts from data analytics, and it ends at ensuring that we lend responsibly, and we do not go out in a sense of capturing the market share. I think one thing which has changed dramatically from 2010 or prior to that, the concentration risk has changed a lot. Earlier, I think all the MFI is almost like 50% or a 40% portfolio is in AP, and the rest of the places it was a little bit lesser. But now people have learned the lesson. They have diversified their portfolio, and the concentration risk is more diversified. I think that needs to go even further. Even at the district level, we need to be cautious that one district should not be over penetrated. It should be more spread out. I think if the business is built in that manner with the principles of responsible lending, I think it would be good.
Thanks, Siddharth. Srinivas?
Suresh, I'm here.
Yes, Radhika. Oh, nice that you are here. Thanks for being here.
I'll just take a minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just one thing I thought maybe, RBI could facilitate a meeting of the association with the state governments in both Andhra and Telangana. That would be a kind of a good way of, breaking the ice. The second one I was thinking was maybe the associations, now they are the SROs, self-regulatory organizations. How far they're performing that role, I don't know, because I haven't really looked at their data. But I assume they're doing something. But there, maybe we can, there can be a possibility of helping the two Srinidhis of Andhra and Telangana. By the way, Srinidhi operates both in urban and rural. Because they operate between SERP, the Society for Elimination of Rural Poverty, and MEPMA, the Mission for Elimination of Poverty in the municipal areas. So how the data of the SHGs, now that almost 100% of the SHG members have individual accounts, how that can go on to credit bureau is something that can be a step forward. And the third, as part of the preparation is, deepening our own understanding of the women who are out there, so that we are not, pushing them into debt traps. So I guess understanding the women, understanding their enterprises, understanding their livelihoods might be, is something that one needs to look at. So slow and steady wins the race. If you rush, you might be beaten up again. So I'm just giving a word of caution, because sometimes governments may be quiet. That does not mean they're not watching what's happening. So thank you.
Thank you, Radhika. Bonam?
Yeah. So I think I'll pretty much take off from where Shashi sort of beautifully coined the word that it's a graduation market, not a replicating market. I think that's the key. A lot of schemes which the government is coming, and that's something which we've seen with some of the players in the market, is creating opportunity because the money is just not sufficient for the full requirement, whether it's a house or for its business purpose. That's where there can be a complementing thing. And of course, it has to be done responsibly with all the cash flow assessment, the FOIR computations, everything to be taken care of. So there is a complementing opportunity which is available. There is a market which is big enough. But whether we can go with the same old methodology and principles and start replicating it, I don't think that may be a good idea. We'll have to tread with caution there if that's the chosen path. So,
cool. Shashi, you want to add?
Yeah, so I think, even today, to a large extent, microfinance, of course, thanks to new regulation, things are beginning to change. But, largely microfinance is still not a very credit underwriting business. Okay, it's still a very rule-based business. So I believe we should start looking at underwriting as a very important function in the microfinance value chain. That'll basically take us to that point of where you don't over leverage, because every lender wants to make sure that the leverage is managed so that their risk is managed. At the customer level, if you manage risk, at the institutional level, you manage risk. So that is where I think all of us have to be mature, recreate our processes, and bring the risk management to the fore. I think then I don't think that issue of over lending would crop up as much as it used to. Thank you.
Yeah.
And see, both SRLM actually in both the state, including the Srinidhi data is part of the SRLM. So the SRLM better to integrate, how to integrate in the credit bureau. MFI data is captured by the credit bureaus, and the SRLM data also in SHG data you can integrate to the even credit bureaus is actually good, and so then we can easily track the data and how many multiple loans by each individual member. At the same time, we can use new guidelines, RBI guidelines. We have great scoring model, at least we can introduce, and even group lending. So individual lending, most of them are already introduced. So that part create worthiness. And moreover, in the customers actually in AP and Telangana, both are well knowledge and well good financial literacy, and you can have referral checks also one of the way to check what is the multiple lendings, the various sources.
Thanks, Hero. Kishore Pule.
Well, as I said, the data is very important because now most of the lenders are using technology to look at the overall indebtedness instead of asking the client how much they borrowed. So unless and until you have this data of SHG level, member level data, then it becomes very difficult. And even today, the GRTs that are conducted, I don't think there is any question that is being asked on their SHG membership. And as we have seen in the data, AP and Telangana SHG intervention is very high, and the portfolio numbers are also looking very high. So that's very, very important factor to look at overall indebtedness. But before I conclude, I just want to tell you that I don't agree to the fact that the AP crisis was because of multiple lending. I just give you one data point here. See, when we were operating in AP, I was competing with 6 other MFIs, whereas I used to operate in Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra. There I used to compete with 17 MFIs. So I don't think that was one of the factors to get AP 2010 Act. That's a different discussion altogether we can have later.
Sure. I mean, you're right. The number of MFIs in AP was much lower compared to other states. Yes, we'll come back to that in detail, but I think that's one of the concerns, if you look at from Malegam committee and all came in, is how do we reduce multiple lending? And we do have data about multiple lending, but it was not that much like what we have to make an elephant out of it. It was not real. I agree with you on that. We have many data points which we worked on it at that time. did show up some multiple. It was not like later on, probably we had 7-8 MFIs lending to one borrower. In AP that time, it was much more less. Anyway, we'll put that and then come back about that later. So Kishore, yeah, your words on that?
So one particular thing which I would like to mention is the cautious lending approach is very much important in AP Telangana. Because from 2010 till 2023, when we are all trying to come in, the market of MFI, which was with easy credit and kind of helpful to the customers, was or is taken over by the government machinery in terms of their own lending, maybe Srinidhi, maybe the SHG model, bank linkage model, etc. So that means the chunk of that business which was going to the customers whom we are targeting is already been done. And now by we all going together, despite the fact that we have so much of maybe digital lending data, civil or high mark data, etc., SHG data not being available with the credit bureaus would maybe make it difficult. And so we go into the same set of customers, and just now Kishore Puri pointed out that during a GRT, nobody is asking where all they have taken kind of thing. Even if you ask, they may not be able to give data correctly. So with that, this can make that, we're looking at whatever thousands of crores out business here from all of us together can probably add up to the existing number of business which is already done by the government institutions with whatever schemes they have. So whether the repayment is going to be possible, the household income is sufficient for all these things. That means following the RBI guidelines to the core is very, very critical when we start launching this. And all of us who are going to be playing should look at that, especially the FOIR and the household income, so that this can be told to any agency or any of these regulators also that how we are following to the T in terms of all these things, and so there should be no problem.
Thanks, Kishore. So I think I would like to open it up to others now, and probably we'll come back to the panel a little later. So maybe the first thing, I think somebody, C.S. Reddy garu, you said somebody from Srinidhi Bank is there. Can we have your views on this discussion, what we are having first, and also talk about what Srinidhi Bank is doing?
Mr. Vidyasagar was here. I am not.
Is he there?
That's what I'm seeing.
I think he's not there. Looks
Possibly
like
he is not there.
Acha, boss. Vidyasagar.
So Vidyasagar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come.
There?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So Vidyasagar, I think what probably you can take 2 minutes, and probably from your perspective, do tell us how Telangana and Andhra Pradesh is in terms of SHG lending and how it is happening, and what do you suggest, or what is your recommendation for MFIs to come back into Andhra and Telangana?
Very tricky question to a competitor.
So competition is always good for the client.
Yes. So let me clarify. I thank you for inviting me to this Zoom. We have the lowest interest rate charging community-based MFI in the country. We charge 11%, and 11% interest rate, and of this we refund almost 1.5% to the community. So the effective rate is only 9.5%. So having said this, yes, there may be many segments where people may need money. Different segments are there. We are covering SHGs. But I can tell you almost 90% of the rural population is covered under SHGs. So also their families. So most of them are borrowing either from under SHG bank linkage or from Srinidhi. So first thing is we have to be very competitive. The second point which I want to reiterate, as many of you have already done it, responsible and cautious lending. Obviously, I think multiple lending is a bane, which may ultimately result in the same consequences as we witnessed sometime in 2011. So I think we have to be very careful about it. So I think the CS, I don't know whether he doesn't have statistics readily with him, but it is the study conducted by them which mentions that the per member borrowing in Telangana is very high. I remember it as 2.5 lakhs or something he was mentioning. So that point has to be taken and calibrated into our lending also. Yes, RBI has instructed banks to share member-wise lending so that they can be incorporated in the CIBIL type of thing. But unfortunately, it has not materialized. So in case of Trinity also, we lend to SHGs, but we track individual borrowers within that. So that helps us in knowing credit history also. I think these points we have to keep in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think Thiru, I think you have been waiting for long, so.
No, not like that, but as Sridhi mentioned, and again, all Srinidhi SHGs also integrated in NRLMs actually. So maybe NRLM we can get village wide. I don't know SHG wise also we can data. Whereas Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, and as Vidyasagar mentioned, 90% SHGs members covered, actually families covered. So we can say each around all member covered by SHG program actually that we can keep in mind. So. And everybody know, Suresh also mentioned various reasons, but in my assessment during crisis, we did a household, each household death cases, we each one-to-one, we did some research. I found a major 3 reasons. One is the multiple lending, and again, pursue collection practice by MFI side. At the same time, this is political motivated, mostly the external factor, politically motivated. So whatever the reported suicide cases, I can say more than 80% definitely is during that period is even not related to microfinance, also consider the microfinance. That was my one to individuals. But the new High Court judgment definitely in February 2023 is definitely a positive step towards the finance inclusion AP and Telangana. So and just now I see the presentation was Sa-Dhan, the presentation. The outstanding SHG portfolio in both and Telangana more than 85,500 crores. While SHG portfolio, this microfinance portfolio are just about than 4,400 crores. It is around 5% of the SHG portfolio. And even if you see the SHG portfolio, current portfolio, it much less than 30% of the pre and AP crisis, 2010. Yes. So hence, I see Srinivas mentioned there is a huge market and a large market and huge opportunity for MFIs over the next 5 years, definitely. And the customers in AP Telangana have good financial literacy, and again, the state has very good connectivity, accessibility, and increasing urbanization. Even these factors actually more positive for the MFI increase the portfolio. So hence, the MFI must consider various business model along with the SHG even group model. We have to choose individual model and the P2P lending, fintech, BC model, various model you have to choose. So some MFI still see as the group model still is a threat. But then we can use various model and channels and technology and innovations to reach and outreach and portfolio. So this we have to consider MFI to expand in this area. Okay. And I'm very sure in the next 5 years, and we're very sure there is MFI can reach to almost 80 to 1 lakh crores. There's a market in the AP Telangana together.
Thanks, Thiru. The floor is open in case whoever wants to add about this. Any questions? You can questions or comments. Please come forward. No. Or is there any questions already put on the chat? I don't see many of them.
No, there are no substantial questions.
Only some comments are there.
Only comments are there. Then they were telling that this is your It's election year, so we have to be cautious. So this is
No questions. So if there are no questions, I can ask a couple of more questions.
I have one thing to say. Hi, this is Vasudev.
Hi.
So we have a good experience. We worked in AP Telangana for quite a good time, and my comments are not new comments other than what have been said for half an hour, 1 hour. So the thing is that there is a significant change in the behavior of the customers in AP Telangana than last 10 years ago, 13 years ago. So the data number one, risk management, and we need to assess the behavior. The behavior of the customer is much important now. Maybe Shashi can add that we may also think of including some AI based analysis, like how his behavior over not just a credit bureau, but also from the other sources of his behavior, like his payment structure, how he's paying, whether he's spending his on cash or credit card or QR code kind of thing, digital payment and all these things. These should be taken care. Much important in AP Telangana this time. Second is the choice of staff is also important. Now the AP Telangana customers are much educated, well aware of the microfinance than 13, 14 years ago. So we need to handle them very carefully with the data, with the information and all. Third is we need to know where we should stop. It is not that just we are 2 players, 3 players here in AP Telangana. We cannot run like earlier. That's it. This is what I am thinking.
Right. Thank you. I think we don't have any other questions, but I have a couple of questions. I think we have some more time, right, Gigi?
Yeah.
Okay.
Another 10 minutes.
Yeah, sure. So last 10 minutes, maybe we'll do one question and then probably we'll close. I think most of us to understand understand the complexities. I think we have everybody repeated the concern of the borrowers and then assessing the capacity of repay to the borrowers and so on. We did talk about it. But off late, I think many of you, if you have looked at looked at what's happening in the market, a lot of fintechs are also in the market, right? I mean, they operate as BCs or agents of some other entity, which is also causing a lot of disturbance. The similar issues did happen even before 2010. We had a lot of unregistered bodies who were also lending and pretending to be MFIs, even though we had an association at that time, but they were not part of the association. Most of this indiscipline actually, or some of the practices which was not coming from the organized players, it came from these unorganized or unregistered entities. So fintechs do also have a different agenda today. So both that time we had unregistered bodies, even though we had a Sa-Dhan and a national body, they were not part of it. Today we have registered entities like fintech, which is also causing disturbance. So there is disturbance in the market. So maybe if what are the words of cautions which our panelists can give to people who want to restart in Andhra, Telangana? Anybody can start.
Well, I'll just, this is more based on the execution. If you look at most of these problems arise during at the execution stage rather than at the strategy stage. What we have seen, I'm sure we've seen across country also, and while we can keep saying that the market is different because of its historical baggage, but most of microfinance is run at the taluka places, village. So this government mechanism, while the state government does come up with or does form some policies. One of the things which does help is contacts at the more localized, maybe a collector office and below, at the, those kind of contacts. That's something which can actually help us, have a more controlled kind of reaction also, because whatever we do will bring out certain reactions, because we are coming up after quite some time. So some of these contacts might be helpful. So if as an as a unified forum here, if we can also be involved into not just at a state government level or the higher government mechanism, we can also look at the village, the talukas, the panchayats, the collector offices. In these kind of places also, wherever we are entering, we get in touch with them and we kind of bring them to our fold on what exactly we are getting into.
Yeah. Thanks. Kishore Pulli, you want to say something? Is there?
Yeah. So, well, Suresh, see, I don't know whether we can compare with this fintechs versus Undamma Bottu Pedata type of institutions, because those were like fly-by-night players. So they were taking the advantage of MFI intervention at that point of time. But fintechs, so they are targeting a similar kind of segment, but income wise similar kind of segment, but the borrower profile wise I think they are different. They are looking at a blue collared employees and all that. So I don't think fintech intervention will cause a disturbance to MFIs as such. Okay, we need to be like these fly by night players. Any industry will have we should be little cautious and work closely and work in coordination with each other, and SROs play critical role in addressing that issue.
Right, thanks. Bonam?
Yeah. So I think primarily the judgment, if we go by the judgment, what it has done is it has only clarified that the regulated bodies will be outside of the Act, which means that the Act continues and the unregulated bodies technically will have to comply with all those norms. Having said that, it's a difficult one from an implementation perspective, but yeah, I think we have to invest. One of the panelists has earlier mentioned, there's a bit of investment required in the way we will go about in the capture of information, in underwriting, and looking at things differently compared to what we do in the rest of the market. It's a tough one because the ease of the model, which is what is the strength in scaling it up faster and quicker, has challenges, and that will be multiplied if we apply the same logic in AP Telangana. So we will have to have a very different mechanism for this market.
Okay. Reddy Garu, you have used? Is there?
I think he left.
Yes, left, is it? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Shashi, Pradaf.
Yeah, Suresh, I think it's a bit unfair to point out at fintechs, because fintechs are not bad people. Yeah, so I mean there are people on the garb of.
Please stop your. Excuse me,
Okay.
Can host mute the?
Yeah, he has already muted himself.
Okay, so what I was trying to say is that let's not paint fintechs as bad people. I think it's not fair. They are very important, and we all should become fintechs, if you ask me. Because adopting technology for lending is nothing wrong in that. Of course, in the garb of being called a fintech, you can have an app and you try to act smart and all that. That happened in various places. Even NBFCs, regulated entities, also sometimes play role, right? So the point is, it's about educating you as a lender, especially in the space that we are in. It is also a responsibility to educate our customers. What they should know about, a good lender, bad lender, good loan, bad loan, do's and don'ts of stuff. So some part of financial literacy is part and parcel of our responsibility. Nowadays, digital literacy is an integrated part of that. So as long as we, build that into our own GRTs and CGTs and all that we do, I think to an extent we can address that. But yeah, larger associations also have a role, I think, to play in educating our customers in terms of dealing with these kind of bad apples. That's how I see it.
Thanks. Sadaf, you left or you're there for?
Sadaf has left. Sadaf has left. Yes.
Okay. Kishore, you have anything?
I think fintechs are definitely something which we have to look at because it's part and parcel of the current scenario, whether in villages or in towns, etc., or cities. People are looking at it because it's some easy way. But then, if we all together ensure that everybody follows the rule or the guidelines given, then it will be good. Otherwise, they'll be like a fly-by-night operator instead of the Undama Botupetta or something. We will have some high-tech name which will come in and then they will do this. And the same thing, the government again will look at us as a party to the transaction and say that you are also involved in that. So I think making anybody who's getting into the business here to understand the situation and the nuances of AP Telangana today is probably our responsibility because we are going to face the music later. So it's something which with the SROs also we look at and then try to. And I remember sometime back in Bangalore, I used to meet the DGM for the NBFC supervision, etc. They used to say, if you have any such people who are doing something wrong, please do bring it to our notice. So I think it's sometime we should do this because we should ensure that things don't get bad for all of us just because somebody does that. So that is something which we have to keep our eyes and ears open.
Right, thanks. So thanks, I think, given the time, I think one last question, one last word from each one of you, whoever is left now, other than people who are left. What would be the role of Sa-Dhan in actually enabling everybody to smoothly integrate into AP and Telangana? Rather, what should Sa-Dhan be? What is the role Sa-Dhan should be playing?
If I might go first, Suresh,
Yes.
I think two would primary. The first intervention could be where we might be able to get more data into the mainstream, about the client-wise data, which is more related to the state financing, which has already happened, because that is quite critical for us to not get into the trap which we fell last time. And it is quite critical now for mostly every financier's lending. Secondly, would be a close interaction with the state machinery, both from the government as well as the bureaucracy, where re-entering is a bit more smoother than having local politicized issues. Thank you.
Thanks. Onam?
Yeah, I think it's been covered by Deepak. Key is to sort of get the state machinery to accept that this is a business model which has its space, and we need to work closely with them. So both on the government side as well as with the banking community. Even SLBCs, I think we have to work very closely with them.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, engage with the government on a regular basis, government as well as regulator on a regular basis, and also complement each other's work.
Okay. Shashi, your last.
Nothing more to add. I think it's critical to engage with.
Today, I have a couple of things actually, because this is like a not reintroducing, but just we need some kind of market study to have different product and channels basically to reach out, because now it's group model more and most MFI is not still some have doubt to give the group lending because it's a political influence. So that actually we have different product models and again business models and channels to reach out to and again invest in finance literacy. This is very important to eliminate local players and again other practices and invest fund literacy very important. And again, the data, SHG data integration. So because of 90% SHG household covered in SHG, so the integration very important SHG data. And again, the ticket size also SHG in average tickets is very high. So that integration with credit bureau or whatever the member level data availability to MFIs through credit bureau or any form, it's very, very important. And finally, the advocacy role with the government, bureaucrats. And again, this microfinance, MFI microfinance is not a competitor. It's actually complementing to growth of the increase finance inclusion, growth of the individuals.
Thanks, Zero. Thanks, unless anybody has anything else to add. Otherwise, I think I can, if Gigi Sarbul can get to an end.
Only one point, Suresh, a lot has been said about the member level data on the SHG.
Yeah.
That's where perhaps if Sa-Dhan can play a role in taking it up, we're doing our bit with whatever we can. But I think it's time that the consumer and the microfinance bureaus are merged together as a single bureau, and the data sharing happens in that bureau. What we understand is some of the SHG data is also going into commercial bureau, which many of them may not actually be checking from a comprehensive exposure perspective. There are challenges in getting individual member data. So there is a bit of work, which if somebody like Sa-Dhan can take it up with RBI, it will be good. And that's the need of the hour.
Thank you.
Just to supplement that point, I think as I think Mr. Reddy mentioned earlier, the average ticket size, if you have to say so, is almost 2.5 lakhs in Telangana. Probably it's equivalent even in AP. So if that is the case, considering the new rules of what RBI has put in, we are almost breaching that limit already. So we'll have to look at how the things are and then go about getting all these data from the credit bureaus and then take it forward so that we don't get into a wrong side of anybody at any point of time.
Thank you. So Gigi, can I just make final comments and then hand it over to you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thanks. There is a lot everybody has said. First of all, thanks a lot to my panel. I think fabulous experience and nuances has really been come out with from everybody. I'm not repeat everything. I'll just I have made some notes. I'll hand it over to Civil and Gigi. But couple of highlights I just wanted to just mention. One is, I think everybody did say that tread with caution, be careful, be slow and steady. That's the best way of dealing with the current situation. Market is very huge and it is matured now compared to what it was when we left earlier. Follow a code of conduct. That's an important thing. I think we need to look at have a proper practices and follow properly. And key, I think, which most of our panel also mentioned is work closely with the government, work closely with not just at the state level, but at the district level, at the taluka level, and so on, because this is something which was missing before 2010. I think most of us MFIs were not really operating or cooperating or integrating or aligning the local political leaders and the local bureaucracy much. So I think that's a big highlight. So I think we had made efforts in ACME before 2010 in Karnataka to actually be part of the SLBCs and DLCCs at every stage. That is one thing which kind of protected Karnataka that time from repeating what Andhra did. So I'm not saying that it was a perfect solution, but we had just made the beginning. So we did have a chair in the same table when these issues at the state level was discussed. So we could actually give our version to those decision makers, because at the field, like many of you said, people can interact or people behave differently, and local political leaders versus a lot of things might happen, which we might not be able to fully control, more particularly like those unregistered MFIs who pretend to be MFIs might just pop up, fly-by-night operators just come up, do the same thing, they call themselves as MFIs, and then create trouble. So key thing was that if the local administration is very much aware of who are organized players, who are not. In fact, some of the issues which we could avoid or actually resolve in many of the places. Even for example, in Kolar, which was a predecessor to what AP happened, it was much before that. Because we went as Sa-Dhan as one large industry body, we could actually present ourselves and actually resolve some of the issues which was in the ground, which happened due to operational difficulties, and also staff training, which is a very critical thing. I think it's a people-intensive business. We're dealing with people. We're everywhere it is people interaction. So our most MFI staff are not trained well. I think it's very, very important to train staff to know how to react and how to respond to crises. When I say crises, it's not those big crises of what happened at the state levels. It's not the big black swan events. It is even micro issues which the clients might have or your borrowers might have. I think how to respond to them, the staff need to be very well trained on. Earlier, before 2010, the response was, we were so obsessed with 100% on-time repayment. That was also a cause for what happened. So probably, I'm sure we all have learned lessons. And if we can build better products, better like top-up products, it's not a same market any longer. We should look at, it's a graduated market. Look at different models, different delivery models, operating models, innovate, work closely with the government. I think these were the key highlights which came up. Of course, there were a lot more. I'm not sure whether I can make justice to all the good points which came up, but it was, end of the day, wonderful discussion. I think there is positivity that we should be able to go back to Andhra and Telangana, the private sector, and look at inclusion, have better choices for the clients. I think that's the important thing for me. Otherwise, monopoly is not good, whether it is from any single player. I think the choices and competition has always been good. We have seen that in telecom industry, how it has been, how the inclusion has happened, how it has been beneficial for the people at large. So I think our competition should be there, but competition and collaboration, I would say, would actually help inclusion in a more ethical, fair, transparent, and more in a manner which it actually helps win-win to clients, the institutions, the employees, our government, and all stakeholders. So I think these are the final comments of mine. Thanks, Sival, Gigi, and everyone here to giving me this opportunity to talk to all of you on this interesting matter. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much. There was somebody called A. Jogi Naidu. He wanted to tell something. If he still wants to tell something.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Namaste ji. Really, thanks to our CS Reddy sir to send the link. Here, what I'm telling, the MFI companies are very good and very useful for the community. But these are not the right time to enter again. This is the election time, as CS Reddy garu told. Another thing in AP, as per my experience, all the SHG members, they are using their 20 lakh amount for a group when they take, they are going for gold, not for investment. Now they are, because interest-free loan. So that is the one tendency here in Andhra Pradesh. The second thing, what I'm requesting the MFIs, kindly encourage the commodity linkage, entrepreneur trainings, and credit linkage. That will be more useful for the community. FPOs are there, there is a chance, there is a scope to finance them. But thank you very much, sir. Thank you, one and all. We are here to support the community by all means. If you come together, if at all we work together. Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving chance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Just, in fact, let me just thank everyone who are present here in this last 1.5 hours of discussion, especially our panelists and the wonderful moderator we had. So the kind of discussions we have, I think it was wonderful and just brought out a lot of good points, and it's really given a roadmap for how do we go forward as far as AP and Telangana are concerned. So I think this is a real learning to everyone. It will be it will be taken forward the way it has been suggested, it has been discussed here. I'm also thankful to you for the kind of roadmap you have given for Sa-Dhan in this regard. So I would be definitely looking at this also as an action point as far as we are concerned. Let me only make a mention here that we have been working with the Reserve Bank of India to bring the SHG bank linkage data into the civil the Credit Information Bureau. But then even RBI has issued a circular on that, but then unfortunately it is not getting implemented. That's a problem. We had recently also taken up with the Reserve Bank of India on this matter, but we will continue to do that. I think that's very important thing because data for a state like Andhra Pradesh, where more than 1 lakh crore of bank loan is outstanding, then I think we have to be a little careful about that. Let me also tell that about the financial literacy part. We are also taking step on that, and as you know, many of you are partnering with us in imparting one major program which we have taken up recently, along with Reserve Bank of India's DEA fund, conducting around 2,250 workshops, of which around 500 workshops have been already completed. So we would be doing that part also. That is just to make a mention of that. Coming to the discussions, I think it has been very well summarized by Sureshji. I will see some 3-4 areas. One is that everybody is, I think, unanimous in saying that there is a huge opportunity available in front of us, but the opportunity has to be taken care of with a lot of care and caution and responsible lending. Code of conduct has to be followed. The RBI regulatory norms has to be followed. So this is one thing which has come out very clearly. There is a huge scope, but then you also have to have a cautious approach to do the business. That's number one. Number two is that there is a lot of, 2010 is not the same as 2023. A lot of things have changed. A lot of new things have come. The regulatory norms have been prescribed. The Credit Information Bureau has come in place. SROs have come in place. Digitization has happened. So much changes have happened. So it can't be the same thing as it was earlier. So definitely we need to have a different approach when we are approaching the new market. Thirdly, what I find is that what I take up a point from this discussion is that, see, in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, where the SHG bank linkage program or the microfinance program had been there for the last almost 25-30 years, is a matured market. Most of the borrowers must have taken at least 10 to 12 cycles or more than that of loans. So they are all used to taking loans and either, as someone said, that it must be using for some consumption purpose or for the production purpose. So they are used to having taken the loan. So now when we are entering it, we can't continue with the same. It has to be a new approach, a new product, a new process. So that is what innovation is, something which has been very clearly mentioned. So we have to look at this market with innovation and also a graduation market. Because as I said, somebody who has taken loans for the last 10-15 cycles, they are not needing a loan for merely a consumption. Their requirement should be for graduation. So we need to look at we need to have a different approach altogether when we are entering into this market, not the same way we're doing in other geographies. That is another point which I thought, which has come out very clearly in this discussions. And finally, if I tell the discussion, if I want to summarize, I would only say that we need to work with the government. That's an important thing. So probably for which SRO has a role to play, as an association, we have a role to play. We need to work with the government. We can't work alone because the perception battle which Mr. Bona has talked about, still it is there. So we need to bring a different perception, different change in perception. So we need to work with the government. We need to work with all the authorities so that we can have a smooth sail. And if that is happening, I'm sure this is going to be a win-win situation for all of us. So let's work for that. We need not have to rush through. We can always study the market. We can always understand the market. We can always understand the psychology of the of the market, and then move slowly. I think slow and steady wins the race. That's a final bit. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, panelists. It's good to hear you. And we'll be looking forward for working closely with you from Sa-Dhan side. And yes, whatever you have guided, especially the working closely with the government mechanism, which is very important, and we give very importance to it. We will definitely have working on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you and good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Sa-Dhan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sa-Dhan team, and thank you, panelists.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.